The San Francisco 49ers lose to the Houston Texans on Sunday, moving to 5-3 on the season. This continues a long stretch of inconsistency from the team. I've got thoughts on the season as a whole. I'll get to those right after this. Hello everyone, welcome in to another episode of the Soder Report. My name is Kyle Soder. We've got a lot to get to today. I haven't done a 49ers episode in a while. But before I get into the 49ers, I just want to give a huge thank you to those of you watching. The channel hit over 2,000 views last week, which was just awesome to see. Subscribers continue to climb. Last week, 99% of you watching were not subscribed. Now that's down to 80%, so thank you very much. If you haven't yet, just hit that subscribe button below. It's free. It just tells YouTube that I'm doing a good job, pretty much. So, now, let's get into the San Francisco 49ers season in review. The last time I talked about the San Francisco 49ers was before the Rams game, and I have to give myself a little pat on the back because going into that Rams game, Brock Purdy was out, George Kittle was out, Ricky Pearsall was out, Nick Bosa was out. It was the 49ers JV squad going into that game. It has been over the last few games. Going into that game, no one really gave the 49ers a chance. And I sat here on this podcast saying they probably lose, but I just have a weird feeling about this game against the Rams. I feel like somehow Kyle Shanahan is going to pull it off, and they did. So I thought I just wanted to give myself a little pat on the back here because I'm wrong often on this show. So, anyway, let's get to the 49ers season. They just lost to the Houston Texans. And they're dealing with injuries left and right. Their run game has been inconsistent, to say the least. Well, there was one inconsistency. It's been pretty consistently bad. And yet, they're 5-3. So, I want to start off with someone who created some ripples this offseason. His name is Jauan Jennings. Things have not gone very well for Jauan Jennings ever since demanding a new contract. Over the offseason, he looked at the 49ers receiving room. There wasn't a lot there. There still isn't. He looked at that and said, hey, I had a 175-yard game against the Rams in Week 3 of the 2024 season. I'm going to go up and I'm going to ask for $20 million a year because the San Francisco 49ers are so happy about giving out these big contracts, especially to wide receivers. And of course, that's not how the 49ers feel. They regret the Brandon Ayuk contract the most out of all the contracts that they have given out. Now, I'm a Brandon Ayuk defender, which I'm becoming more and more of a minority as we go by. But Jauan Jennings thought that he could catch the 49ers in a desperate position. The 49ers did not give him that deal, and he has looked absolutely miserable ever since. He didn't play the first few weeks of the season. In the Tampa Bay game, he got into a fight with Kyle Shanahan on the sideline while Shanahan was trying to call a 2-minute offense. he came out after and said that he has 5 broken ribs, a low ankle sprain, and a high ankle sprain, which I don't know how much of that I believe. If that's the case, then credit to him for playing through it, but I just don't know if I believe that. And then last week he Deebo Samuels the ball. For those of you who watched Monday Night Football, he had the football in his hands and then tipped it up right to a defender against the Atlanta Falcons. And then today he had a crucial drop, or on Sunday he had a crucial drop and a crucial face mask penalty, taking away a first down. It looked like it was sort of planned. It didn't look like a heat of a moment thing. And I'm here to tell you right now that if I was the general manager of the San Francisco 49ers, on this 2025 team, I would rather have a 2026 7th round pick than Jawan Jennings on the roster. I would rather have I'd rather have Mr. Irrelevant in the 2029 draft than Jawan Jennings. Basically saying, I would rather have nothing than have Jawan Jennings. He's been a net negative to the team, and at this point, I think getting rid of him would be addition by subtraction. I don't know of a team that would trade for him, especially since he came out and, in my opinion, exaggerated his injuries. Maybe those 5 broken ribs have been confirmed somewhere. Let me know if I'm mistaken on that. But I don't see any team that would be willing to trade for an underperforming wide receiver. And Jawan Jennings is only hurting this San Francisco 49ers team right now. He's miserable. Kendrick Bourne just stepped in and took his spot, which means he's not going to get paid. He's not going to meet his incentives on his contract. So you understand his point of view because he did have a really good year last year. And he wanted to capitalize on his opportunity. It didn't go well. He got hit with a couple injuries early in the year, and someone else stepped in and took his place. So you feel a little bit bad for him. But at this point, he's just miserable to be in San Francisco. So what I would do is I would either find a trade partner and get whatever I can get for him, or just cut him loose at this point. I don't think his teammates enjoy him being in San Francisco, and I don't think he enjoys being in San Francisco. I don't think the coaches enjoy him being in San Francisco. So that's a big issue that the 49ers are facing currently, is one of their only starters coming into the year that's healthy is hurting the team week after week. He's not run blocking, he's not giving effort like he was. He's making stupid penalties. He's not being physical. It's starting to go downhill for Jawan Jennings really fast. And think back to 2023 where he had 19 catches all season. But they had that hard hat. If you remember, there was the hard hat, and wide receivers would sign it after they get a pancake block. It was a cool thing that Kyle Shanahan did for the locker room. Jawan Jennings' name was all over that. He was blocking people into the Gatorade coolers. It was awesome to watch, but that's just not who he is anymore. He does not want to be here. So oblige him. Another big conversation that has been going on this year is the run game. the run game has been mostly down, like I said. And against the Texans, it was down. It was down bad. Christian McCaffrey is running for about 3.1 yards per carry all year, which just isn't going to get it done. I sat here before the Rams game and said I was disappointed with both Christian McCaffrey and Trent Williams. And Christian McCaffrey had that game against the Falcons that sort of gave everyone hope. It made everyone believe in Christian McCaffrey for a second again. Everyone came out saying that everyone who had questioned Christian McCaffrey was just crazy and they didn't know ball and they didn't know what they were watching. But the other 7 weeks of the season, he's just looked like a 29-year-old with bilateral Achilles tendonitis. And things aren't looking good for Christian McCaffrey's career going forward right now. To me, it's starting to look like you should mix in a lot more of Brian Robinson and Jordan James. For those of you who watched my draft video in the spring, I wasn't super ecstatic about Jordan James, but I think he's a guy who can run between the tackles pretty well and get you 3 or 4 yards every single run. He's not going to get stopped for a 1 yard gain very often. He's not going to get stopped for a loss very often. He's not going to break a 20-yard run very often. And I watched a lot of him because he was an Oregon Duck. And on this channel here, I cover the Ducks as well as the 49ers. So I watched a lot of Jordan James. And that's kind of the guy I see. Is he's just going to run for 3-4 yards every carry, no more, no less. Now, to get more into the X's and O's of the run game, I think this is where the conversation gets more interesting. And I want to bring this back to the Texans game and the Atlanta game specifically. So, against Atlanta, the conversation coming out of that game is the offense ran a lot of duo in their run game. Now, I'm going to explain that. What the Shanahan system usually runs is called outside zone. And they didn't do that as much against Atlanta. They couldn't do duo against Houston, and I'll tell you why. Duo basically relies on your offensive lineman overpowering the other defensive line. And the whole goal of duo is to get 2 offensive linemen to block the linebackers. So you're trying to get 2 offensive linemen to get to the second level of the defense. And then your running back can run up that hole and decide whether to bounce it outside, continue straight up the middle, or bend it inside. And that's what duo is predicated on. That's why you saw so many Christian McCaffrey runs for 10 yards straight up the middle. So let me give an example. Let's say you've got your offensive line. Let's say your center and right guard are the ones you have a goal to get to the second level of the defense, to the linebackers. Your center and your right guard are going to block the people in front of them for just a split second. But they're going to pass off those 2 defenders to the left guard and the right tackle. So if they can do that successfully, then they can have a free shot at the 2 linebackers. And then the running back can run up behind them, and it works beautifully. In order to do that, you need to overpower those 2 defenders in front of you, though. And the left guard and the right tackle would need to be in good position to continue flanking them and overpowering them as well. So it's something that big, powerful, strong offensive lines run really well. Now, when we talk about the San Francisco 49ers offensive line, I would not describe it as big, strong, and powerful. I would describe it more as light and fast. Light-footed. They're not overpowering. That's where a lot of the criticism comes up against the offensive line, is it hurts them in pass protection because they can't anchor, because when you're in pass protection, you're obviously going backwards, and typically a defensive lineman that's bigger than the offensive line can just continue driving them back into the quarterback. So that's duo. That's what they were running against the Atlanta Falcons. What they usually run is called outside zone. And outside zone is basically your offensive line running to a spot and then sort of setting up a screen like in basketball. Like it's the main point of outside zone is you need to have fast and light-footed offensive linemen to get to a certain spot and outflank the defense. And that's what made the Shanahan system so special when it first came out. Because you had the Dallas Cowboys in the 1970s who just had these big, strong offensive linemen. And then the Shanahan system came into play, and they were taking guys that were 280 pounds, and they were having running backs having MVP seasons over and over and over. And it was just any running back. Any running back could do it. And they were doing it with offensive linemen that no one in the league really wanted back then. So obviously I wasn't alive back then, but that's what made the Shanahan system so desirable. So now today, when I describe the 49ers offensive line as light, quick, fast-footed, that's all by design so that they can be able to run the outside zone. And typically, the 49ers offensive line can't run duo because they're not overpowering and strong. So how come they did it to the Atlanta Falcons, and why didn't they do it to the Houston Texans? Well, in the NFL, styles make fights. The Atlanta defense is built very differently than the Houston Texans defense. The Atlanta Falcons defense, especially their defensive line, is built on speed. They took James Pierce Jr. in the first round of the draft. They took Jalen Walker in the first round of the draft. Those are their edge rushers. Both of those guys are about 250 pounds. So they're not very big, but they are extremely fast. So outside zone wouldn't really work against them. But that is probably the only defensive line in the league that the San Francisco 49ers could overpower and run duo against. The Texans are big and they are strong. They have the best defense in the league. And that's why on Sunday the 49ers couldn't run the ball, is because all season they've been trying this outside zone. It hasn't been working. They did duo really well against the Falcons, and that worked because they're small. That would not work against Houston, and they had to go back to outside zone, which just hasn't been working. So hopefully that clicks sometime. But that's why the 49ers can beat a 4-2 team who just shut down Josh Allen and then come out and look extremely mediocre against a 2-4 Houston Texans team. It's the NFL is any given Sunday, but it's also about the style of play. Shanahan's system struggles a lot against Jim Schwartz on the Browns. That's why they lose to the Browns. The Shanahan system struggles against Brian Flores. That's why they lose to the Vikings. It struggles against Steve Spagnuolo. That's why they lose to the Chiefs. Those guys run these simulated pressures with a lot of press man coverage. I'm getting really into the X's and O's here, so sorry if I'm drowning you guys, but I'm trying to explain why the 49ers could look so dominant against a 4-2 Falcons team and then look so bad against a 2-4 Houston Texans team. It's just different. So, another thing that has plagued the 49ers this season, as well as all throughout Kyle Shanahan's tenure, is injuries. And I want to talk specifically about Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, and Brock Purdy. So, let's start with Fred. Because 49ers fans were holding a funeral, practically, for the season after Fred Warner got injured against the Buccaneers. And he's a great player. I also think that the name Fred Warner, how do I say this? How do I want to say this? I think that the name Fred Warner carries more weight than the actual play he puts out onto the field. I think he's just a little bit overrated. And a lot of times that comes off as a really negative thing. That comes off as a person saying that someone has a good reputation, but they're actually a bad player. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Fred Warner has the reputation of being the best 49ers linebacker in franchise history. And I don't think that he's that. I think there are flaws to his game that no one talks about because it's taboo almost to say anything negative about Fred Warner. No one does it because he's a great player, but there are flaws to every single athlete ever. And one of Fred's flaws is he's pretty average in the run game. His best plays are made when he's going backward. He's the best in the NFL in pass coverage. He's the best against pass defense. He's really good at sniffing out wide receiver screens or running back screens. When you ask him to go and plug a hole in the run game, he's smart enough that he goes to the right hole, but he's not going to come up and just Ray Lewis or Dre Greenlaw a running back and just knock them back onto their butt. A lot of times he gets dragged for a couple of yards in the run game. Tatum Bethune, his replacement, is not nearly as good as Fred Warner in coverage, but his run defense is about as good, if not better, than Fred Warner's. And that's why after Fred Warner went down for the season, I wasn't too panicked about the injury. I didn't hold a funeral thinking that the 49ers season was over. They can make the playoffs with Tatum Bethune playing middle linebacker. Now, some of these other injuries, it's getting a little out of hand. But Bethune, I think he's going to grow on fans throughout the year. And I think he's going to be fine. I know that people on Twitter like to highlight every single mistake he makes because the whole mission of 49ers Twitter is to prop up Fred Warner as much as possible. NFL as well. Like, maybe I'm the one wrong because I'm the only one saying it. If I'm saying everyone's crazy but me, maybe I am crazy, but that's just my opinion. That's what I see about Fred. Is he is the brain of the defense. He is really good in pass defense. But I think that the run defense can be a bit suspect at times. Let's get to Nick Bosa's injury. This one, to me, is more concerning. The edge position is more concerning than the linebacker position. Fred Warner might be a better player than Nick Bosa, but I think that the edge position is more of a concern than linebacker right now. And that's partly because Nick Bosa is a really good player. It's partly because everyone else on the defensive line is a rookie and they're still figuring things out. And it's also because his replacement has gone out. Jeez, why am I blanking on his name? Why can I just think of Sam Huff? Bryce Huff. I can't believe I blanked on that name. He's out with a hamstring injury for a couple weeks. So now they're down to their third string edge rusher. Well, not even that, because Sam Okuanu went out with an injury. So they're down to like their practice squad guys, where that edge position was supposed to be their future Hall of Famer franchise guy. That's a huge gap. That's a much bigger gap than Tatum Bethune, who the 49ers have been developing for the past couple of years. To have to go to your practice squad to replace your franchise all-world guy, one of the captains on the team, that's really tough to do. And if you were to give me the option of whether to trade for a middle linebacker or an edge rusher, I would definitely choose the edge rusher. I would way prefer to go and get an edge rusher because I think that is just a gaping hole. And those rookies playing next to what would have been Nick Bosa would have been able to learn from him, would have been able to grow, make their mistakes with Nick Bosa there. And now they're making those mistakes and trying to grow when they've got some practice squad player there. So that's really tough. I think that the edge position is the most suspect on the team right now. And then last episode, I got into the Brock Purdy, Mac Jones talk right when it was first starting before the Rams game. I think it's obvious at this point that neither of them, like, if Brock's foot injury continues, I have a feeling that he's going to be magically healed this week. He's going to feel fine now that the 49ers lost. So we'll see what happens there. But I think this stretch has taught us that there's not a huge difference between Mac Jones and Brock Purdy. It's shown us that there are a lot of flaws in Purdy's game. And it's great that he can be mobile and he can run around, but this offense works when you play on time and on schedule. And Purdy has gotten away from that over the past couple years. He was doing that in 2023. Hopefully he can get back to doing that. But I think that you look at this and you sort of wish that the 49ers could have just found a replacement for Brock and put all of the money you spent on Brock into other assets throughout the team. And this year, he's not getting paid a whole lot. Next year, he won't be getting paid a whole lot, and there's an out. So the contract is really good. But I don't know if you should continue after that out with Brock Purdy as the quarterback of this team unless he shows that he can get back to playing on time, on schedule, and scramble 2, maybe 3 times a game. Because he's just not a guy that is going to change the game. He's not an elite quarterback the way that Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen are. So, Mac's doing fine. The 49ers, I know I sort of dogged on a couple players. I didn't mean to do that. The whole point of this segment is that I think the 49ers are fine, even if Purdy and Fred Warner are out. I think that the 49ers are fine. They can still make a run to the playoffs because they have guys that can replace those players. And that speaks to the depth of this team, which has been lacking, to say the least. The past couple of years, this has been a very top-heavy team. That's been a result of trades like the Trey Lance trade. Imagine having 3 more first-round picks on this team. It's been a result of the Christian McCaffrey trade. Imagine having a 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 6th round player, something like that. It was 4 draft picks for Christian McCaffrey. So those really hurt the depth of this team for a couple of years. I think we're seeing that the depth of this team is getting back up to speed. It's not so crushing that a few players miss time. They have guys that can step in and give you average to above average play. That being said, there are a ton of injuries, and this team is going to be inconsistent. They're just going to be up and down. It was a young team to begin with at the beginning of this season. We're going to see more games like the Jaguars game and the Texans game. It's going to happen more often. They're going to drop one to some team that you think they should beat because they're a young team figuring out the NFL. And if they get guys back, then maybe they can establish some more consistency. But if it continues on this trajectory where they are just having injuries all over the place, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Buckle up. And hopefully we see some improvement from the rookies over the next few weeks. Shanahan said week 12, this will be a different team than week 1. We just had week 8, and it still looks like sort of the same team it was in week 1. So hopefully we see some stuff in the next month. It is said that November is the longest month of the year, both in college and NFL. I think that's true. So let's see what happens throughout the month. Hopefully we see some development from these rookies and they take a step forward. So, all this being said, the San Francisco 49ers are 5-3. My last episode was really gloomy. I hope I'm not coming off as gloomy. I hope I'm not coming off as bashing players, because these players that I'm talking about are great players. Fred Warner is a great linebacker. Brock Purdy, when he's playing on time and on schedule, he's a great quarterback. I think the 49ers can make a run without them. I don't think they'll get very far into the playoffs without those guys, but I think that they can make a run and get there. So that's going to be all for today. Let me know what you guys think. I've got I mean, I've got these thoughts rattling around in my brain all the time, and I kind of go crazy when I don't have other people to talk to. So let me know what you think. Let me know if there's film I should watch or reevaluate. But that's going to be the show for today. The 49ers are in great position. Their schedule does not look as easy as it did a couple months ago. Like, they've got the Colts on their schedule, which we chalked up as a win a couple months ago. Now it's not looking like that's going to be the case. So let me know what you think. Once again, please subscribe below, like, comment, whatever. Thank you for all the support again. I'm so grateful for you guys for tuning in, watching this show, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.